We're back on OutKick 360. We're not going to waste any time. It is time to complain. Every week, every Wednesday at this time is primary complaint right here on OutKick 360. To kick us off, Jonathan Hutton.
It's time to air our top grievance of the week.
You can complain all you want.
My job is so unfulfilling. Don't run away from your feelings.
It's time for primary complaint on OutKick 360.
Chad, my primary complaint, as you know, I've been battling the crud, the cough and the laryngitis, whatever it was. And the onset hit like Wednesday of last week. Going into Thanksgiving break and, the doctor's office I'd normally go to, completely closed. Thanksgiving, Black Friday, always closed on the weekend, so the next day in was Monday. So I waited 2 hours at a walk-in clinic. I get all the way through the assessment. I can barely speak. And the best they would give me was a prescription, not for a steroid injection, which is what I needed, which was what I received yesterday, and I feel great now, but for Allegra D, something I can go get on my own, walking into a Walgreens. I'm not looking to be Jeff Blauser when I'm waiting on the 2-hour steroid injection to get Allegra D. I expect to leave there as Barry Bonds if I'm waiting on the walk-in clinic and paying out of pocket. That's my primary complaint.
That prescription strength Allegra D, though, is quite powerful, I will say. My primary complaint, the plethora of options for holiday music. I'm a fan of Christmas music, fan of the holidays. I'm listening to some holiday music right now. But there are times, and I've discussed this often, that you can have too many options that just completely drown you. Here's an example. Amazon Music right now, I was scrolling through last night on the TV, trying to find some holiday music around the house. Here are their current options. Merry Mix, Christmas Past, Christmas Present, Christmas Classics, Classical Christmas, Greatest Christmas Songs, Mellow Holiday, Christian Christmas, Christmas for Kids, Felices Fiestas, Holiday Jazz, Alternative Christmas, Indie Christmas, Christmas by the Fire, Holiday Party Jams. That's one. There's 41 others channels of holiday channels only. This is too much, and it's my primary complaint. And up next, our producer, Davey Hudson, has a complaint.
Well, Chad, I guess I'll play Scrooge as well. Christmas lights. I don't have an issue with the lights, but at least buy a timer. I got Clark Griswold living across the street from my bedroom window, and I mean, when I say it's 3 a.m. and there is just glaring light going through the window, it's to the point like it's waking me up. It's a struggle to go to sleep. And you could say, Davey, why not just buy some blackout curtains? It's like, you know what? I kind of like some natural sunlight to be able to get in, wake me up in the morning. But when it's 3 a.m., I don't even want to know what my neighbor's electric bill is at this point. Just get a timer. Cut it off at midnight. No issues here, but that is my primary complaint.
It reminds me of the Seinfeld episode with the light on the restaurant outside of Kramer's window that kept him up at night. That can be a problem. There's just so much variation of Christmas lights. Like in my neighborhood alone, there's not one theme. So it's very eclectic in terms of like the colors, the style of them, and it's hard to get a sense of what all's going on. The projections on the house now, that show the little holiday scenes at all times.
You know what I hate are all these inflatables. I think the inflatables look like trash. Like because the wind yesterday with all the weather.
Yeah, and when you deflate them during the day or at different times, also overnight, it's just laying there looking like a tarp in your yard.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of those either. My kids love them. They are dying to have us put inflatables up, and we're not doing it.
Yeah, the families that have kids are the reason why those are up in the yard. Yeah. But I mean,
it's like, look, kids, you could have been born to someone else and be living in a trailer park right now and have all the inflatables that you want. But instead, you got us, and that's it. So that's how we're going to roll. Clark Lea is going to join us in about 15, 20 minutes.
Nice.
It is time for our NFL elimination. We eliminate teams from playoff contention. Not the way the College Football Playoff Committee does it, not arbitrarily like they do. We'll actually have some merit behind our rationale. That's coming up next. This is OutKick 360.
Football season is in full swing, and it's time to start cashing in on your favorite players with our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Simply pick 2 or more players and decide if they're going to score more or less than their stat projection. The more players you pick, the more you can win. Up to 10 times your money. All first-time users that deposit and use the promo code OutKick360, you receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. Entries on Prize Picks, they can be made in seconds, and they offer fast and safe withdrawals. Download it today, and don't forget to use the promo code OutKick360 for a special welcome bonus.
Oh, yes, we are rolling along on a Wednesday afternoon on OutKick 360. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. However you consume this show, we thank you, as long as you're consuming it. A lot of things being consumed in the bar area right now here at 6th and Peabody with Old Smoky Moonshine and Yeehaw Beer. That's where we are every day, downtown Nashville, alongside Jonathan Hutton. I'm Chad Withrow. We've got Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lea coming up in about 15 minutes. He's going to join us in studio. We'll talk about their season. And we'll talk a little defensive football heading into the SEC championship game with Clark Lea. That's coming up in about 15 minutes. But right now, we're going to talk some NFL, Hutton, and we've done this every week, where each week we eliminate a team from playoff contention. I know you have one huge regret on your list. I have two small regrets on my list. So we'll start with your weekly elimination from the playoffs.
Yeah, so I eliminated early on the Jets and the Commanders by week 7 of this season, saying, you know what, I've completely placed them to the side. They're not playoff contenders. They're done. And I eliminated the Commanders before I even eliminated the Lions, the Packers, Steelers. That's going to come back to haunt me because Washington and New York, the Giants, face each other twice over the next 3 weeks. And ultimately, that will determine which team's getting in or out of the wild card weekend based on those results. And the Giants still have further matchups with the Eagles twice, I believe. So it's still a lot to play in that division. And for whatever reason, I went to the well way too soon on Washington, despite their 1-4 start. I have waited on Jacksonville because I thought over the last 3 weeks there was a chance we could see them heat up a bit. And I'm adding them to my list, even though we saw them just win a game, because, Chad, they're so inconsistent about getting points when it matters in the fourth quarter. Trevor Lawrence did it this past week. That's coming to a halt, I think, over the course of December. And even if by this point, even if they go on a mini run, they're still like Atlanta was last year at best, where they're the 8th or 9th seed outside looking in to a 7-seeded Chargers team probably, or maybe I'm trying to think of the other teams that would be right there that are still out but could get in. I think it's the Chargers right now that are not in that could be in. It's not going to be Jacksonville. And I'm also adding the Arizona Cardinals. Again, another team coming off a win, but a team that is extremely inconsistent, that doesn't have a true identity, and a team, Chad, that can't get out of its own way and needs to figure out what they're about to do at head coach. They need to figure out if they're going to be in the Sean Payton sweepstakes, not if they're going to be a wild card team in the playoffs. They're done. And I should have had them on the list way sooner than now.
Hutton, what did you think when Zach Wilson was benched in regards to your Jets pick from week 2? Did you start thinking, man, this is going to look better for me now? And then after Mike White's performance, I'm curious what your thought process was.
Zach Wilson was 5-2 as a starter this year when he was benched. But you could tell in that last game, they were not going to hold on to the playoff footing with him not stepping up and making plays. Mike White spinning the football, man.
Yeah.
Threw for 300 yards. He gives his receivers a chance. And for Robert Saleh, with a great opportunity to be a wild card contender in the AFC East, to go ahead and say, Wilson's out, we're going with Mike White now, he's telling you they're not going to turn back to him anytime soon. Not until it's a LaFleur.
Not when you bench the number 2 overall.
Not until it's like a LaFleur-Rodgers situation where they're mathematically eliminated and you turn things over to the quarterback that you want to get a look at. The guy they want to get a look at is Zach Wilson. But first, they need to determine if they're going to be in the playoffs or not. And Wilson's not going to get them there this year.
So I'm eliminating a team that you still have in contention right now.
Okay.
I'm going straight NFC West with my 2 picks. Cardinals are in a bad way. They've got assistant coaches groping a woman in Mexico and getting fired. They've got Kyler Murray with his homework clause in his contract. They've got a lot of issues on that team right now. Cliff Kingsbury doesn't look like a guy, even though he got the contract extension, it's going to have a job too long after the season, you would think. So the Cardinals are done, and I know you still have the LA Rams, the defending Super Bowl champions. It's time to call it. We're getting close to turning the page to December. It's a bad football team.
Yeah, they're done.
They have
Aaron Donald's not playing this week either. So
they have cratered after last season's Super Bowl. So I'm getting rid of the Cardinals, the Chargers. As I look at my entire list right now, the one regret that I have is probably Washington. I think it's on your list also. I mean, I still feel okay about it.
I think they're making the playoffs.
But that Washington and the Giants in that division, to me, it's going to be one or the other. that's going to be in the playoffs. I don't see both making it happen.
Well, they're not
going to have all 4 teams that division go.
You're right, and they're going to play each other 3 times over the next 17 days. Whenever they kick off this Sunday, and then the Giants still have 2 games against Philly. So I think Washington, they have a great opportunity to be like the 7th seed in the playoffs. And I mean, they started 1-4. You know, I think they're a better team than what Pittsburgh was last year as the 7th seed that got in. And that's saying something for an organization that's been through, I mean, there's no reason they should be where they are, playing as well as they are, with Taylor Heineke and Ron Rivera trying to, keep everything taped together as best as possible with ownership and then everything else behind the scenes going crazy. Their running back, who just bulldozed his way into the end zone this past weekend, was shot twice in August. I mean, it's insane what they've done. They can't even get a statue right for Sean Taylor, but somehow they're going to be a playoff team.
So we're getting down to the nitty-gritty on this elimination. I'm just looking at my board right now of teams that are still out there that I could possibly eliminate in the next couple of weeks, and the only one I really feel good about is Green Bay. In New Orleans, I'd put in that mix also.
Yes.
I've yet to eliminate.
The
but
problem
once you
is
get
that
through that, now we're getting down to, you can't eliminate anyone because there's only 7 teams left in each conference,
the problem
which
with
we're going to run into
the
soon.
NFC South, though, right now, the Panthers are a game out of first place. The Carolina Panthers are a game out of first place in that division.
It feels like no one's dying to win that division right now, the way they're playing.
And with the divisional matchups, everyone meets a divisional opponent in the final week of the season. Those 2 games will determine the division in Week 18. Brady will be playing for his playoff life, and the winner of that division is going to host a game over probably Dallas or Philly will be on the road in the NFC South wildcard weekend.
It's going to be fun either way, and we'll continue to eliminate teams until there's no more teams to eliminate, and then we have no playoffs at all. Clark Lea, Vanderbilt head coach, he's in studio with us. We're going to break a little early and go to him coming up. Colin Warner, our radio producer, huge Notre Dame fan, loved Clark Lea and his time at Notre Dame, of course.
That's right.
Clark is now the head coach at Vanderbilt, and they had a really good season, ending a long SEC losing streak with 2 wins.
Finish, man.
Late in the year, remarkable. But Colin didn't care about that. He said, "I'm just going to be a homer today and wear my Notre Dame attire because Clark Lea's coming in studio." It was a bold move by him.
The process that Coach Lea walked us through last year, right there, you're starting at the bottom, and you're building and stacking progress, and sometimes trying to take failure and shape it into progress, which he told us about this preseason. He doesn't have to do that now. You've got the wins over Florida and Kentucky to finish the year. And on top of that, we get to preview the SEC championship game through the eyes of Brian Kelly, who he knows very well, as LSU, despite the loss to A&M this past weekend, tries to add to the craziness of what could be a very chaotic championship weekend in the other conferences. Can LSU stun us one more time? Can they make this a 4-quarter game against Georgia on Saturday? We'll get Clark's take on that.
In regards to the program building part of it, I'll say something that Clark probably can't. He's starting from the bottom and from scratch in the SEC, not the Sun Belt.
Exactly.
So there's a big difference about where you're starting and your competition around you. So that makes the job even trickier at times. So we'll talk to Clark about building a program at Vanderbilt. We'll talk a little SEC championship and game prep and preparing for an offense like Georgia that he saw this year with Vanderbilt. We'll talk about all these things. Clark Lea in our downtown Nashville studio at 6 and Peabody when we return. This is OutKick 360.
Welcome into the Trey Wallace podcast. Man, setting up for a crazy end to the college football season. We've got college basketball season already in full tilt. Before you know it, college baseball season will be here. But the first episode of the Trey Wallace podcast, happy to have my buddy Braden Gall from 440 Sports. does a myriad of things. ESPN Radio, Sirius, you name it. Braden's all over it. Braden Gall, what's up, buddy?
Yes, we are bitter rivals in the SEC deep state cabal. That is,
we are
Fox versus ESPN. No, I'm honored to be here. Honored to be with you, man. On your first episode, I could not be more honored to be a part of it, for sure.
No, man, and I really appreciate it. Long relationship with Braden, and this guy knows his stuff. And look, I can't believe the regular season is pretty much over. It's all the stuff that we've gone through this year in college football, and so we sit here now and we wonder, okay, what does the playoffs look like? What are these, New Year's 6 bowl games going to look like? So let's kind of start from there, Braden. Like, after the chaos of this past weekend, and the rankings are going to come out and they'll be set where they're at. But your takeaways from how we look at the national championship picture as we sit here right now on this Wednesday.
I think there's two things. One sort of a reminder to college football fans, and one is sort of forward-looking, which I think is the point of your question. It feels like maybe there are multiple tiers at the top, but that Georgia is just significantly better than everybody else. I said back in August, I actually thought Georgia was wildly underrated at number 3. I spent the entire summer telling people this. I don't know why people didn't listen. But if you're going to draw another line, it seems like Ohio State for now, depending on what takes place, of course, against Michigan. I think Michigan, if Blake Corum is healthy, can go in there and actually win that game. But what we saw this past weekend, which ties into, sort of a PSA for college football fans, like, look at the top 5 and look at who they played. Number 1 played at 6-4 Kentucky. Number 2 plays at 6-4 Maryland at the time. Michigan plays host to 7-3 Illinois. All of them unranked, by the way. TCU at 6-4 Baylor. Tennessee at 6-4 South Carolina. And I think it's an example. All 5 of them struggling. And obviously Tennessee's defense the worst of all of them. But I think it's a lesson that we forget sometimes, because, like, in the internet age of, like, just screaming at each other and hot takes and grievance, like, oh, Kentucky, they suck. Oh, Illinois, they suck. Oh, Baylor, they suck. Like, there's no middle ground. You're either elite or you suck on Twitter, right. And that's not real. Real life is, it's really hard to go undefeated in any conference. All of those teams are bowl teams. All those teams have winning records. I think Baylor and Kentucky are probably the 2 best. So I think you can still there's a little difference there, but by and large, they're all kind of the same team, and all the top 5 struggled. And so chaos is always just, chaos is 1 quarter away, 1 play away, 1 bad snap by a long snapper away from sort of taking over the sport. We didn't have that as much this weekend. Tennessee's the only real loser in all of that. So I think it's just a reminder, like, man, college football is really hard. Going undefeated is really hard. Conference play with rivals like Baylor and TCU have known each other for 100 years.
Right, exactly.
Like, they hate each other. So it's just one of those moments where I think the whole internet's like, oh, these teams all suck. Look at this, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, no, actually, Baylor's pretty good. Kentucky's pretty good.
We're back, OutKick 360, downtown Nashville, 6th and Peabody Studios with Old Smoky Moonshine and Yeehaw Beer, alongside Jonathan Hutton. I'm Chad Withrow. Just talking to the break, we're getting ready to call some TV games for the state of Tennessee championships, TSSAA championships tomorrow. Some good private school action there. Our next guest played a little private school, high school football in the Nashville area at MBA, played at Vanderbilt, has done a lot in coaching, as we said with Colin Warner, great defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, and now the head man at his alma mater, Clark Lea, in studio with us right now. Coach, appreciate you making the trip over here to join us. I know that it's never probably really a slow time for you as a head coach of an SEC program.
No, first of all, this feels official over here. I feel like I've got a place in the 6th and Peabody studio. So I hope that's what this means. This indicates this little spot you got me in. Yeah. This is nonstop. And obviously this time of year has gotten crazier because the world that we inhabit now, transfer portal and NIL and all the likes. And so this has been a good week to get with our roster. And, I know that that's what programs are doing across the country. And, it's interesting times.
We were talking about college football obviously every day on the show, but talking Vanderbilt specifically in the SEC. And we talked about the challenges of keeping people engaged when there's not a lot of great results to show. When you're in the midst of a long conference losing streak and that's happening, keeping everyone together, keeping purpose, staying the course, it's difficult at times. We talked about that challenge. Then you guys go to Lexington and win. And I'm watching your post-game interview, Coach, and I'm seeing that game, and you see the emotion that comes along with it, and I'm thinking, okay, now here's something to point to if you're the coach or you're a coach or you're a part of that program, right? How big was that now in hindsight as you look back on everything that's transpired to go up there and get that first SEC win in such a long time that dates back before you were the coach at Vanderbilt?
Well, it was special, and I think my emotions reflected, the authenticity of the feeling I had after the game. That's a lot of work that's gone in, and it's a lot of stepping into belief every day and challenging young people to be resilient and to, for me, that's what it's my job. And obviously I think I'm hardwired to accept and face a challenge, and I chose the job for that reason. I believe in the challenge, but I think anymore to get a team of people to do that week in, week out. I got a lot of respect for our players, and I told them that, a ton of respect for them. And I think also, beyond that game to double down on it the following week, I think their resilience really is an inspiration to me. I mean, it's a testament to what people who are bound together on a common mission can accomplish. And it's just a start, right? This isn't an arrival, but you look for these little signs of progress along the way because those become important sustenance for you on the climb that you're actually on. And we've talked about the big picture climb. We've talked about where we want this program to be. To get there, you have to have these little signs of incremental progress. And, we certainly celebrate those from this season.
How cool was it for you to accomplish those things with Mike Wright at quarterback? Given everything that had transpired, him sticking with it, a guy that you see now, everybody can go anywhere at any time. He didn't. He stayed, and he won 2 SEC games for you this year. How cool was that?
I think it's just a great representation of our program. A guy that bets on himself, but believes in the process, believes in the program. It's human nature, and Mike was disappointed. Look, everyone would be. There's not, I don't want to paint him as not being impacted by those shifts and the peaks and valleys is to not do it the actual adversity justice. That was hard conversation on our end, hard conversation to be on the receiving end of, but he cares about what we're building. And, Coach Lynch, Joey Lynch, our coordinator and quarterbacks coach, has done a remarkable job building authentic relationships in that room. And he just kept coaching them, and Mike kept being coached. And, Mike, I think at first accepted a role as kind of the number 2 and a mentor to AJ, and then he owned the role. And I think every week he just went deeper in kind of helping AJ, grow into his potential. And he was ready when his number was called. And I think it's a great lesson for everyone on our roster that, no matter how the depth chart shakes out, you got to be prepared. And when your number's called, you go out there and make things happen. He did that. And obviously when he was given the ball to start because AJ was out hurt, he maximized those opportunities. And really proud of Mike, and I think it's a great representation again of the program we're building.
Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lea in studio with us on OutKick 360. Has Brian Kelly reached out to you this week?
No, I think he and I text quite a bit just to stay in touch, but nothing specific to this week.
I would be reaching out, and he's no idiot, so I'm sure he will, to talk to his former defensive coordinator about game planning for Georgia. How difficult is the Georgia offense to game plan for, given their versatility at tight end? They always run it well. And then they have a 6-year quarterback in Stetson Bennett that is an X factor, despite not being recruited to be one.
They're challenging. The tight ends make it particularly challenging. You got one who's could also play receiver. You got another who's just a behemoth, and those guys both have the ability to make contested plays. They did against us. I thought at times we had really good coverage on them, but Stetson Bennett makes a great throw. They make the catch. They have the ability to turn routine plays into explosive plays. The run game, I think, is what gets that offense going. And the other thing is Stetson Bennett's an athlete. I mean, he can create with his legs. I remember in preparing for our game, watching him just knife the South Carolina defense in half for a touchdown. He can do that. And so
deceptive with that.
He's deceptive. And, he plays with such moxie because he's got the experience, he's got the confidence. And when he's on, he's going to create problems. And that offense has an ability to just build on their performance. They're not afraid to punt the ball. They're not afraid to kick field goals. It's atypical of what you see now in college football, but what they know is they have a really good defense, and that defense is going to generate possessions for them, and so they're going to get their opportunities to score, and you see that team kind of overwhelm the opponent over 4 quarters.
So I'm curious here, take us through a game plan setup for them from your defensive mindset here, and what you think LSU may go, but if last year against the Chiefs, you got to decide if you're going to try to take away Hill or Kelsey.
Yeah.
And once you get there, then you start to build your plan.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do first for Georgia?
Yeah, well, I think to start, and maybe just to kind of paint a picture of how I feel about that program, I think Kirby Smart's done a great job of building an identity into the program. You see this team play with 3 phases that are interlocked, and they don't allow the opponent to shift their approach. I mean, they're going to go out and play their game. And I respect that a lot. I think that identity is what has allowed them to win games that are close, to win games when the things haven't gone perfectly for them. In terms of defending them, obviously, you got to be structured against a run, and you have to have a plan to take away the tight ends. I think that is the way the offense gets going, particularly with number 19. And to me, that's both as a runner and a catcher. You got to understand how they're trying to get him the ball, and again, in your design, be prepared to make them play left-handed, to make them get the ball to another playmaker. It's not a big vertical shot team. You're going to get runs, and you're going to run action pass, and so you can't be afraid to absorb some of the overs at times. Like that, as a coordinator, you get impatient because you don't want to give up a yard. And the truth is, an over that goes, for 20 yards, 30 yards, though painful, down it and line up and play the next snap. That's got to be the approach. They're going to be multiple in formation. They're going to be physical, and you have to match their physical play at the line of scrimmage. Again, take away the run and get ready to defend the run action pass. That's going to be the formula.
And when I think of Georgia, I think athletic, but I think physical also.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to have talent. It's another thing to build your program around physicality and being more physical than the opponent. I don't know if that's something you necessarily prepare for from a schematic standpoint, but do you agree with that assessment about Georgia and how they're built under Kirby Smart?
Oh, yeah. You better have your cleats in the ground or they will move you. And that's on both sides. One of the things that's interesting, so to beat Georgia, you have to score points. And to score points, you have to have a plan to do that because you're not just going to line up and throw the ball past them, right? So you start to look at some of the nuances in the game, turning the ball over. They've been a team since 2020 that really the turnover margin in their giveaway rate in their losses has been at 21% per possession. So 21% of the possessions they've had a turnover. In their wins, it's 9%. So them protecting the ball allows for that offense to gain the momentum and to kind of build in performance. On the flip side, when they're taking the ball away, they're at 15% rate of takeaways per possession. In their wins, it's 8% in losses. So you're seeing like them doubling up on turnovers. When they double up, when they win games, the rate of turnover is double. When they lose games, the rate of giveaway is double. And I think creating the turnovers for LSU will be huge because, that's a way to generate field position, generate possessions, and score points. And if you can score points, what's interesting is teams that have, since 2020, teams that have scored more than 24 points in the game, Georgia's 9-13 when that's happened. You start to see a team that resembles something that's normal, right? But it's because the defense is so good. What is your plan? What is your path to generating those points? It's not going to be driving long fields and, thinking that you're going to just stay on schedule and win on third downs. It's just not a formula against them.
Clark Lea, our guest. What was the magic formula that Brian Kelly had to figure out, and it took about a month and a half to do it, to allow LSU to be in this situation? Yeah. They are where A&M should be, based on preseason expectation, right?
Yeah.
Like, if the surprise team wasn't going to be Bama, everyone in Atlanta was picking A&M, and now it's LSU.
In fairness, I pay attention to one program in the season. That's Vanderbilt, and then whoever we're playing against. But I'll say this because I think this is important.
You know the man well. So.
I know the man well, and I know the process well. I took a lot from our time at Notre Dame. One of the things being there that you realize pretty quickly is every game you play is a big game, and it doesn't matter who you're playing against. I mean, because when teams come into your stadium, it's their Super Bowl, and they're going to give you everything they have. So winning games is really challenging. And then obviously you have your built-in rivalries. So you're going to play Stanford, you're going to play USC, so on and so forth. We played Michigan while I was there, Michigan State. These are games that are regional that carry a lot of weight. There's trophies involved, and so again, you have this approach there where you're not putting a special focus on any one opponent. You shift focus instead totally to you, to your process, your team, how you're growing and developing through the season. And I see that just in following the scores. I see that in how they've built at LSU. I think there's been an internal focus. They take a tough loss to open the season, a lot of scrutiny there. But, that's just not going to impact Coach Kelly, and thereby it's not going to impact the program, because he's going to keep them insulated from that, and he's going to keep the focus on their own development. I think we've seen that, and obviously that positions them well here to play in the championship game.
I don't know how much you in watching all the film for every opponent that you're getting ready for this year, you're watching it and you're looking at your opponent, not necessarily the opponent of the team you're about to play, but in regards to LSU, if you watched a game featuring LSU preparing for a different opponent, does the coaching mind in you, are you looking at it and saying to yourself, there's a recall there that, I've done this because I coached with Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
I've been in this spot before. I know when they're about to dial up a blitz. I know what the play call is going to be here. There are people going back to that 2-point conversion play against Bama and saying, well, this is the same play he ran against Florida State, years before to win a game. So does your mind go there at all?
Yeah. Well, particularly when you see his face red and he's chewing that microphone up. I know what that sounds like. I'm just kidding. Coach was great to me, and again, we developed a great relationship. His process and his fingerprints are all over the success they've had this season. I did see the 2-point conversion, and I heard his response after the game why to do it, and he just said it felt right. It felt like the right thing to go for the win there. I think that's he's courageous. He's got toughness. He's got a vision for what he wants. I thought that was an awesome sequence and a moment for him here early in his build where he's being true to himself and making things happen.
So head coaching mindset, and we'll apply this with your job at Vanderbilt and what you're trying to accomplish. It's one thing to go into a game and say, we're going to play with nothing to lose. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to be the aggressor in this game and then do it. And it's another thing to make your program about that.
Yeah.
In every single game that you go out there. how do you balance that when you're going into a game thinking we may need to go for a few more fourth downs? You fake a punt against Tennessee.
Yeah.
You get the first down, the punter fumbles at the end of
Yeah,
it.
I know.
That's unfortunate, obviously, but that's a risk, right? You're going into games thinking we may need to have a couple of these plays. Do you do that specific to games, or do you apply that to your program and say, we're just going to play like this with little fear, and we're going to try to make some things happen, even if I ultimately get criticized by going for that fourth down?
Well, it's a blend because you want to have a team that has an attitude to take the fight to the opponent, and there's a mindset there that you're going to be freewheeling and you're going to take your chances. I think any good competitor is going to take chances. It's just what are those moments where the chance needs to be taken? You referenced the fake punt. I mean, I thought that was a great moment for us to see some momentum and to generate some offense. We needed to extend a drive, and we did it, and then we fumbled the ball. But that was a part of the opening of the second half where there were 3 consecutive drives for Tennessee that started at midfield. And so the first one happened because we went for it on 4th and inches. They tackled us in the backfield. The second one was the fumbled fake punt, and the third was a punt return that got back to midfield. And in that sequence, our aggression really cost us a lot, cost us dearly, because you turn around that score pretty quick, and you're all of a sudden playing at a deficit that's going to be hard to overcome against a really good offense. And yet, for me, in that moment, it's about what are we called to do to win the game, and we want to win the game. And so I think I can't make a decision that I don't feel like supports the path to win. And there's no, we can't step in and say, regardless of, the circumstances, this is what we're doing. I think you're constantly recalibrating and adjusting. And you have to live with, when you take those risks, because any great competitor is going to do that, you got to live with the consequences of coming up short. And that's what happened to us in the Tennessee game. And again, I think it cost us dearly, and it cost us a chance to be competitive late in that game.
When deciding on playing time or, who's playing in a game, something that's always interested me is, and we see this with guys leaving the transfer portal. Well, maybe the coach should have played them a few more series, then they wouldn't have left, or this would have happened. But the idea of merit versus what's right in the moment, or what could help your team win the most or help them out in a specific spot. And I'm watching the game Saturday, and something jumped out to me at halftime. You're coming out of the locker room and interviewed by SEC Network and Colt Kubelik, and you said, well, Mike's earned the chance to get out of this, right? He's having a tough game, and at halftime you said he's earned the opportunity. He's going to go back out there and play. Now, eventually you went to A.J. Swan, and the struggles continued. But I just found that answer interesting. Can you expound upon that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to play quarterback looking over your shoulder. And I've talked at length about this with just in various settings about, I don't know that there's ever such a thing as a 2-quarterback system that works. I think you have to design around the skills and the talents of the person playing. And then in that position, there's got to be some awareness that you're going to be able to play through mistakes. If they're sitting there thinking their next mistake is going to be a seat on the bench, then they're going to overthink everything. They're not going to throw a pass with confidence. To play the position in this league, you better step into a pocket and be willing to try to fit a ball in tight windows. We don't want to take or steal the ability for someone to do that because they're thinking about the consequences of their actions. So, Mike, we were 21-0 at half. It had not gone the way we wanted to offensively. I actually felt like there were drives that extended for us, that self-inflicted wounds had kind of stolen the momentum. There was the snap that got past us. There was a TFL on a jet sweep. Credit to Tennessee that got us off schedule. We had some penalties that showed up that took momentum, the drive momentum away from us. And so in my mind, I still felt like there was a path for us to establish a run game, to get back to the formula that we had against Florida and Kentucky, and then to design some shots in there and to stretch them vertically. And at 3 scores with us getting possession out of half, we want to play through those. Now, what happened pretty quickly was it became 4 scores and then 5, and at those points, you're looking at our path back in this is to throw it. And then that was the point at which we made the change because AJ gives us the best chance to run the offense if that's going to be our personality.
Clark Lea in studio with us, and having you in our backyard here, Coach, is cool because this is stuff we would bring up on the show.
Yeah.
That I feel like you'll give us, even if you can't give us the full answer, it's an honest answer in some degree here. Transfer portal.
Yeah.
How easy or how difficult is it for you to figure out other programs contacting your guys? And how are you more concerned with that than you are trying to figure out other players in the portal currently? So you don't have, and I don't have to name, you could go to any program and find players that left last year. But while you're building momentum, you also don't want to have to look over your shoulder to other programs in your own conference that are going to take your good players. And that would happen on any program across the country.
That's right. Well, this is added complexity, right?
No
Roster
doubt.
management in college football now has taken on meaning that no one would have ever anticipated, or at least no one that I know. I feel like there's two passageways for communication. There's internal, there's external, and internally, I feel really, really good about our bonds as a program, our relationships. We have authenticity. We have people that care about each other and that I think really feel supported in their journey. And so when that is the focus, when you talk about how do you feel about your roster, how do you feel about your players, are they connected to what you're building? Absolutely. Then you have these external channels, and that's where sometimes seeds can be planted and sprout that take someone off their course. Certainly, when it comes to the portal's designed for guys to have the opportunity to seek a chance to play, to seek an opportunity to have the career they want. And I think in that way, it's a great thing for college football. The tampering and stuff that goes on. And as I enter this, I know Mike's probably a little nervous where I go next. And it's not
Don't worry about it, Mike. He's fine. Just let him go.
Do you trust me?
Yeah.
No.
You navigate this well. I appreciate the attempt at honesty here.
Well, we need to talk about it because I feel like this is something that's not going to get better until we design the course through it. And right now, it's not okay. It's not in a good place. We're doing a disservice to the young men that are in college playing football, pursuing degrees, and pursuing NFL careers. We're not supporting them the way that they need to be supported. And what's being rewarded right now is this no holds barred kind of wild west approach. And that's not to level accusations. That's not to say. I mean, I'm not going to go there. But what I'm going to say is that what we need to do is kind of look back at the design and say, how do we do this better so that we can keep everything within the lines, and again, give the kids the best chance to have a healthy experience. Without, I mean, God, it's hard enough. You guys remember to be 18 to 22, all the things that you're dealing with.
Sure.
And these kids are on a path to, again, the NFL, to an education that's going to be life-changing for them. When you introduce these external narratives and these external factors, and you just, I think you're setting up an unhealthy kind of aspect of the journey that we got to address. And we will. In time, it's going to change. I mean, this will look different a year from now. I believe that. I mean, it looks different now than it did a year ago. It's all part of the evolution of the game. I think we gotta focus on this one aspect in particular and clean it up a little bit so that we can so that we can have a healthy game.
And this isn't a Vanderbilt specific issue that I was, and that
it's everywhere.
It's literally
everywhere.
Every program. It can be it can be between Ohio State and Michigan.
That's right.
So I'm always curious though about the program builders, which you're right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Trying to maintain, but also improve, because you can also be enhanced by the portal.
Yeah.
And you can get a huge boost there. Especially is it easier or more difficult now for a quarterback to just be dropped into a program and win?
Just, I think, depends on system. The closer your system is to an NFL system, I think it's harder because there's more layers to it. Now, if there's carryover from the previous place, then
like at SC right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Then you have, and then there are certain offensive systems that, don't require much other than, a decision and a throw. And I think those systems are maybe conducive to early success. But what we want to bank on is retention. And with retention, the one thing about, you can have novice flow. I mean, look, if you watched me play golf, and I probably haven't played golf in, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, honestly, but I would go out right now and hit some good shots and feel good about my game. And I wouldn't be exposed until my second round. And then all of a sudden I'd be at 120 and, be calling it a day. And so you got this novice flow where, you can be early in something and just feeling good and hitting the marks. What we want to do at Vanderbilt in retaining is built to an expert flow. And that's where you're actually slowing the game down because you have an awareness and an understanding of what you're trying to get done. That takes collaboration between player and coach. That takes chemistry between player and player. And when you watch like the best NFL offenses, that's really what you see is this development and this maturation within a system where they're anticipating and they're able to weaponize their checks and know where the ball's going before the ball's snapped. To me, that is it's a great brand of football to watch. That's a little bit more of what we're trying to capture. And to do that, player retention becomes our focus. So when it comes to transfer portal, my interest is focused really on the experience of our players. And what does that mean? Do they have a sense of belonging? They're going to be challenged, and they want to be challenged, but are they supported through the challenge, right? Are there authentic relationships with coaches? How connected do they feel to the people around them? Do they feel like there's a higher purpose or a greater purpose that's bringing them in the building? And I know these things aren't, like, you don't hear a lot of talk about this, but to me, that those are things as humans that have always mattered. They've always mattered. And we circumvent those right now because it's easier to think, oh, if we lose him, we'll go get another. But I don't live that way. That's just not what I believe in, and I don't believe that that's going to unlock the potential of our program. And so that's where we focus first. We'll come out of this next little sequence and determine, hey, where do we need to supplement? Where do we need to bolster? And then when we do that, when we go into the portal, it's about finding guys that fit who we are too, because this is still a big picture build. It's still something that's going to grow over time, and we want to be in a hurry, but we don't want to make a mistake that compromises that long-term vision.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Do you even have time in today's world of recruiting and transfer portal to do the research and be thoughtful about it the way you are in terms of retention on your own roster to where you can do your due diligence on a guy? Or is it simply, hey, really good player, could help us as a player, hits the portal, you got to act immediately because countless other programs are acting in the same moment?
Well, you got to make a choice. Either you're going to choose to leave it to chance, or you're gonna take the time to have a visit and see if there's chemistry. For me, especially again with what we're doing, and we had progress this year. We had visible progress that we celebrate, but we haven't arrived. We got a long way to go. And I don't, what I want the program, when you watch these guys play, I want you to see a team playing together and playing hard, playing in structure. I want you to see a team that cares about what they're a part of. The minute you go out and you introduce someone into that ecosystem, and we talk about our program as an ecosystem or a living and breathing organism, that as soon as you introduce something that disrupts that flow, disrupts the environment, you're putting at jeopardy all the progress that you've made. And so we're going to be deliberate in this. And over time, what will happen is people see the progress, see the result, is also the word gets out on the experience these kids are having and how connected they are. You end up building something that people want to be a part of. And that's the goal. And it takes time. We weren't a real attractive destination a year ago because, we had a poor season and we were early in the throes of building a program. We'll be more attractive this season because players will see that point of progress and they'll say, I want to go in there and be the difference. Now we have to be deliberate on and to say, hey, this is a character fit. This is going to fit our environment. This is going to allow us to reach another level.
Thanks so much for coming in studio and doing this. This has been
awesome.
Terrific.
Yeah,
Thank
good to be with you guys. I appreciate.
You've got
again,
your permanent
the
spot
workstation here is perfect.
5
Absolutely.
5 seconds. Do you think we see chaos championship weekend in the Big Five, or do you think it's chalk?
Has to be chaos. I mean, there's no other way to do it, right?
It's college football.
That
That's
means-
kind of the name of the game, right?
That's right.
Every weekend there's something.
Unfortunately, that means Bama and Ohio State will be in the playoffs.
There's something. There's going to be a chaos age, and it's all
Yeah.
about trying to predict which one it will
Hey,
be.
can
and that's
can
the
I
hard
give
part.
one more thing in the
Yeah.
game that I thought was interesting for LSU? First down efficiency. So actually converting first downs on first down. Teams come into play Georgia a lot of times think, hey, it's about staying on schedule. But the truth is Georgia's a really good third down team. Be interesting to see how they perform on first down. Can they create explosives? One thing quick, in the championship game last year in the SEC championship, Alabama won. They were 20% conversion on first down. In the national championship game, they were 8%.
Wow.
So you see the
Converting
difference
a first down on their first down.
Yeah, this is the depth of detail that we look at.
That's great.
Maybe it turns out.
It's like the equivalent of a fastball hitter on the first pitch.
That's right.
Every time. You know he's swinging for the fences, going for it. That is the level of detail that we asked Clark Lea to come in for. And now I'm going to be watching that in this game if LSU is going to have a chance. Coach, thank you so much
Good
for
to be
coming in.
with you
Really
guys. My
appreciate
pleasure,
it.
guys.
Yep.
One of the best. It's cool.
That terrific conversation. We've got some prize picks when we come back. We're going to explain, and we're going to give you some winners. That's coming up next. This is OutKick 360. Football season is in full swing, and it's time to start cashing in on your favorite players with our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Simply pick 2 or more players and decide if they will score more or less than their stat projection. The more players you pick, the more you can win, up to 10 times your money. All first-time users that deposit and use promo code OutKick360 will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. Entries on Prize Picks can be made in seconds, and they offer fast and safe withdrawals. Download it today, and don't forget to use our promo code OutKick360 for a special welcome bonus.
Two teams went out. One was actually a team from the unit that I now play on TV that was attached to us. They went out, they went on the front side or went around to go to the front side of this other house. And my team was basically going towards the back side of the house. So very shortly what happened was it was the wrong house. And when we hit that one house, the actual house it was, which was next door, which is not exactly next door because Sutter City is kind of weird of how it's built. But, you know, they heard us, they were getting ready, prepping, you know, their gear, you know, and so they were ready to go. So when that team came around, a bunch of dudes opened up out of the front, what I assume would be the living room, with AKs and shot, I think they shot 3, if I'm not mistaken, they shot 3 of the members of that team. 2 of them were pretty much out of the fight at that point. But they were, I mean, it was heavy. I wasn't on that side of the house, but just hearing it, I was like, oh man, that's extreme. So I ran into the back door, which came into the kitchen, cleared through there, went in the hallway, and those same guys, as we approached that room, shot through the walls of that hallway, shot the guy literally right next to me. So then we backed off, and then we were and I'd have to draw it out, but we were in a tactical position that was just there wasn't a lot we could do. So we were trying to kind of figure out how to solve it. And the next thing I know, I remember just the whole room, or actually it wasn't really a room, it was the hallway, you know, so it was more like a tube straight at me, and just everything exploded. And I actually remember hitting the ground and looking up down the hallway, and I was just confused. I didn't know what had happened. And I can say, you know, getting shot at, okay. It's one thing, but the explosion made me feel small. It was like a superhero just grabbed me and was like, or it was like the Hulk grabbed me and was like, it was it felt like a supernatural power. And it blew, so it was a nighttime hit. It blew my nods and my nod mount off my face. So I went from, under nods to not being able to see anything. It obviously, my arm, I thought it blew off. I'm trying to think of what else it wrecked, but wrecked several things. But and everything was pitch black for me, and I really didn't know what was going on. I just felt my arm was blown off, so I got up and walked outside to the back, and there was a wall that we had hopped to get in. That wasn't happening, so I just put my back against the wall and tried to take care of myself. But I never lost consciousness. The only time actually I did lose consciousness is when, and I still to this day don't know how they got me over that wall. I have no idea. But other than that, probably 5 minutes that they got me over the wall, I never lost consciousness.
We're back on OutKick 360. Jonathan Hutton, Chad Withrow with you. Talking to you about Prize Picks. You've seen it during some of our breaks. If you're watching the show, something really cool. It's a unique take on daily fantasy. And in fantasy, you compete against others. This is a little different. Instead of doing that, you're predicting whether individual players will go over or under their projection on a specific stat. Example would be Joe Burrow passing yards. If it's set at 275, could you go over or under? You select between 2 and 5 players. You can mix and match sports games, NFL, NBA, NHL, World Cup, whatever you want to do. And if you hit it, then you're going to hit a parlay, basically.
Really simple.
Through different, it's kind of a fantasy element
over, under, more
of
or
projections,
less.
more or less. It's that simple. And you can use the promo code right now. If you go to Prize Picks, they're going to match your first deposit up to $100 by using the promo code OutKick360. Hutton, you've got a winner for us.
Yeah, I mean, look, right now, teams are really trying to establish the run across the league. 2 teams do it well, but haven't done it well recently. Cordero Patterson and the Atlanta Falcons hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers this week in a division that's wide open. This is a must-win for Arthur Smith, who's going to turn around and hand it to the wide receiver turn running back. And Cordero Patterson, I'm going more than 48.5 rushing yards. Derrick Henry on Sunday, part of my Prize Picks parlay here. Derrick Henry on Sunday, over 85.5 rushing yards against the Eagles. Why? Because in order to be in the game, he's got to be the bell cow that he hasn't been the last couple of weeks. Patterson, Henry, more than their projected totals.
Prize Picks, download the app. It's very easy. And again, you can use the promo code OutKick360. All together, OutKick360. They're going to match a deposit up to $100 with that. We're all about more on this show.
That's right.
I went with a pick that also was more,
Good.
3 times over. Dalvin Cook, more than 72.5 yards. Derrick Henry, more than 85.5 yards. Christian McCaffrey, more than 47.5 rushing yards. Hutton and I, we're all about the more. We're all about Prize Picks. I'll probably bet more and not less on every single pick. We've got more for you.
That's right.
Coming up. Big 4 o'clock hour, including our fearless leader, Clay Travis, will join us in about 25 minutes. This is OutKick 360 across the OutKick Network.
Football season is in full swing, and it's time to start cashing in on your favorite players with our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Simply pick 2 or more players and decide if they're going to score more or less than their stat projection. The more players you pick, the more you can win. Up to 10 times your money. All first-time users that deposit and use the promo code OutKick360, you receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. Entries on Prize Picks, they can be made in seconds, and they offer fast and safe withdrawals. Download it today, and don't forget to use the promo code OutKick360 for a special welcome bonus.
What's up? It's Hutton from OutKick 360, and it is time for the 3 in 60. 3 questions, and I have 60 seconds. Let's do this.
If you could never watch football again, what sport are you going all in on?
Basketball, but college basketball, 100%. And I already am, but not the NBA. College hoops over anything related to hoops.
What do you pour first, the milk or the cereal?
The cereal. Cereal killers pour the milk first and then put the cereal in. It's perfect, and I then eat it within 60 seconds.
Budweiser has a lot of beer that it can't sell at the World Cup, and they've decided to give it all to the country who wins. Who do you think is getting all the beer?
I mean, it's not going to be Argentina anymore, right? Either way, the Saudis are probably going to keep it for themselves. So it has no meaning on who wins the World Cup.
And we're back. Final hour of OutKick 360 on this Wednesday. I'm Chad Withrow. Jonathan Hutton is here. We've got Clay Travis coming up a little bit later. We're here. We're not leaving.
Clay's coming.
Some of you may want us to leave, but we're not going to. We refuse to leave. Sixth and Peabody wants us to get out of here. We're not going to do it.
Nope.
Because we're having too much fun. And we are at our downtown Nashville Sixth and Peabody studios with Old Smoky Moonshine and Yeehaw Beer. Been a great show so far. Big thanks to Clark Lea for joining us in studio. And we've talked some college football playoff rankings. There's one other facet of this in terms of bowl selection I want to chat with you about also, Hutton, with Ohio State and the Rose Bowl possibly. This is always, with bowl games, you can expect this, the backroom politics and politicking from different ADs with different bowl directors and the networks to get the right pieces to the puzzle. It does not surprise me ever, but this is one that goes even beyond that. We'll discuss why Ohio State may not be in the Rose Bowl coming up. But first, Hutton, you wrote your weekly column with the NFL Awards watch list.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a refreshing look right now on the quarterback development and momentum outside of the normal names, right? We're not debating right now Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady and regurgitating all the career stats and what it means this year. We're not seeing a single player dominate a category the way Lamar Jackson did back in 2019. He was the unanimous most valuable player. And right now, yes, Patrick Mahomes is the MVP. But it is a wide open sprint finish now to where they have Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Tua Tagovailoa have done enough to be in the conversation for the final 6 games to determine who's going to be league MVP. Again, right now, Chad, it's Patrick Mahomes. With the body of work and the moments that he's put up. And chances are, he has the potential to actually leave us without making much of an argument for the other two compared to the other two doing that for him. But Jalen Hurts, his last handful of performances haven't been, exactly perfect. He has been called upon and has delivered in the moment to deliver more wins for the Philadelphia Eagles from the quarterback spot. And he's elevated the Eagles to the upper shelf, the upper tier of the NFL hierarchy right now. And 17 passing touchdowns, 3 interceptions. In the run game, he's rushed for nearly 600 yards, 8 touchdowns on the ground. I don't think, want him to carry the football 15 times a game. But, Chad, the versatility, the way he does not put the football in harm's way within this offense for the most part, and his offensive line, he gives Philly a massive advantage because of the RPO and how they can run this offense and distribute it multiple ways. Meanwhile, there's Tua, he's worthy of discussion. I don't think he's going to win it, though, because I don't think he has the offensive line that's going to protect him. And case in point is Sunday's game against the Houston Texans. They're up 30-0 at halftime.
Yeah.
It is time to pad your stats. And that's what Mike McDaniel was allowing Tua to do in the second half. It's 30-0. He was in the game for 2.5 series to begin the second half. And not because it was a blowout, not because they extended the lead to 38-30 or 37-30. It's because on 6 dropbacks, he was sacked 3 times.
Gosh.
And he was sacked 5 times total, but McDaniel benched him to protect him, to not let Tua get hurt in what was just a stat-stuffing grab and the attempt that we would be judging him on against the other 2 candidates for MVP. He's worthy of it. I just don't think the offensive line holds up to nearly the extent we'll see in Kansas City and in Philly. And because of that, I think it's a 3-player race, but it's really down to 2 for me. And Jalen Hurts can absolutely win it because the Eagles, they've got the Christmas Eve game coming up against Dallas, and they've got the AFC South leading Tennessee Titans at home this week. They're just coming off the national broadcast this past Monday. Chad, he's playing for who is likely to be the top overall seed in the league based on record.
I think Lamar Jackson winning the award was a good thing for the NFL because now the first thing I think about with Lamar Jackson is NFL MVP,
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And it's just good to have some variation in terms of who wins the award. To be honest, I'm rooting for Jalen Hurts to win it because I think it's what's best for the NFL. Because Patrick Mahomes, not that Jalen Hurts is necessarily going anywhere with his play in Philadelphia, but Patrick Mahomes is going to win. Has he already won multiple MVPs? Going for a third?
One.
So he's won one.
2018.
So he's going. So
again, it's refreshing.
I say that thinking that the assumption is Mahomes will win multiple MVPs, but that may not necessarily be the case if Jalen Hurts wins it this year.
And the other refreshing
but
part
I
of
still
it
feel
is,
like that would be best for the league for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes has not. He's won it once, 2018. He was also the Offensive Player of the Year that same year. He won both awards. He was that dominant. But also refreshing is the clear-cut favorite, the betting favorite, Josh Allen, is a clear number 4 in the pecking order right now. And he's not even in the conversation. He can get back in it, but it's going to take some play evening out a bit on the turnover margin and the balanced attack that Philly has and the way that Mahomes is the MVP right now, though. I don't hate it. He's been that good. But, man, Hurts and Tua, both guys in prove-it years. And to produce the way they are, and Tua for missing, 3 games, 2.5 games, and to still be, to me, this clear-cut in the mix is remarkable for both of these guys.
Yeah, I want the most deserving player to win it and the best player this year to win it. But there's a part of me that's rooting for some new blood because I like the Jalen Hurts story in Philly. And I think more than anything, Hutton, it's because there's been a lot of unexpected things around the NFL this year. We didn't expect Tom Brady's Bucs to struggle to this level. We didn't expect a midseason divorce to be announced. We didn't expect Aaron Rodgers to be this bad and the Packers to be this bad. There's been some upsetting surprises in terms of what we thought coming into the season that we haven't seen. This has been one of those pleasant surprises that I want to see continue. And I'm rooting for Jalen Hurts to win the MVP.
Chad,
I'm not going to hold back on that.
Another superstar that isn't getting enough discussion for another award, if you'll allow me to try to sell you on Travis Kelce.
And this show is yours as well as it is mine.
But
go ahead.
I think Offensive Player of the Year, I guess the voters could put Jalen Hurts as Offensive Player of the Year and Mahomes could be – I mean, we've seen that.
The flip-flop where you have a position player.
MVP is a quarterback award, and Offensive Player of the Year I have focused on running back, wide receiver. The last 2 weeks, though, and this week I've got Kelce as my Offensive Player of the Year, ahead of Justin Jefferson and ahead of Tyreek Hill and ahead of Josh Jacobs, who gets an honorable mention after the great performance that he's had. He's just on a bad team. But here's Kelce. I watched the Chiefs move the football like every one of us. They find points when they have to find points, when it matters, every single week. Mahomes distributes that winning formula. And then when it's the clutch moments that Mahomes is producing his MVP caliber stat line, he's throwing to Travis Kelce. There are 3 receivers who already have 1,000 yards receiving on the season. Travis Kelce isn't one of them. There are plenty of top receivers who run 4.3. Travis Kelce isn't one of those guys. He runs like 4.6, according to Google. But even when Travis Kelce doesn't dominate a stat sheet, he dominates the scoreboard. His worst 2 games this season are a great example. He combined for 87 total yards in performances against the Raiders and the Rams combined. But in both of those games, he scored 5 total touchdowns combined. And that's impacting wins and allowing Kansas City to build momentum in their division, beating the Raiders on a 1-point game where the Raiders were up 17. Kelce didn't play all that well, but he scored 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns in that game. And same thing with the Rams. Not a great performance by his standard, but he separates the score in the second half against a Rams team that is all but done and a Chiefs team that what they do is they win in November and December. And Chad, he's personally responsible for 72 points for the Chiefs this year, Kelce.
It's remarkable.
Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill, who right now are the clear-cut favorites to win Offensive Player of the Year, combined have totaled 54. Kelsey has accounted for 72. Just let that sink in. You've got the tight end.
He is the money man.
Without Hill in the lineup now, he's the guy to stop. And you can't stop him, just like you can't stop Mahomes. I'm trying to put some more respect on the guy's name because he's not mentioned nearly enough as the top player of offensive talent. And this dude is playing at such a high level. I don't know how we overlook him year after year.
Incredible. 72 for Kelsey, 54 combined for Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson.
Just scoreboard.
That is,
the numbers, they're on record-setting paces for the best wide receiver season we've ever seen individually.
And Justin Jefferson's already going to go over the best 3-year start. I think he just did with Randy Moss, right?
Yeah, he's got 6 games left. Yeah, he's going to shatter it. But point being, though, man, this is I think I don't know if Kelsey wins this, but this is the guy you got to stop.
Yeah,
he's no different than Jefferson. Jefferson's the best receiver in the league right now. Hill has been unstoppable, but the guy you have to game plan for, the guy you have to solve, is Kelsey, and he's a matchup nightmare no matter who you put on him.
So you can find that stat, which is terrific, and everything else at Hutton's NFL Awards Watch column at OutKick.com right now. If you're watching, you can scan to read more about it as well. More college football discussion right now, though, Hutton. So Ohio State, because the Rose Bowl has some very loose language in terms of who they have to invite or who they bring to their bowl, the thought is the top Big Ten team that's not in the playoff in a non-playoff hosting year for the Rose Bowl will take the Big Ten team, and they'll take the top Pac-12 team that's also not in the playoff. That may not be the case, though. Kirk Herbstreit pointed this out last night, and Kirk Herbstreit would know, the former Buckeye with who he talks to, that there is a scenario in place where both the Rose Bowl and Ohio State would choose elsewhere, that they don't want to be united again this year, even though Ohio State right now, the odds-on favorite, obviously, to be the highest-ranked non-playoff Big Ten team, because they've been there 3 of the last 5 years, they may elect to go to the Orange Bowl to play possibly Clemson or someone else. This has Tennessee fans up in arms because they want the Orange Bowl. Thought that was the case because they're ranked behind Alabama. Here's my one issue with all this, Hutton, because we know that the whole bowl system is kind of the old, lounge with the guys with the cigars, drinking old fashions and talking about where teams are going to go. It's orchestrated by a big system that involves the athletic director, the coach in some cases, the TV networks, and the bowl itself, the venue, in terms of what they want to see. And they try to come to the best possible puzzle they can based on who selects where. The Rose Bowl needs a rule in place like the Sugar Bowl. If you're going to be tied at the hip the way we all know the Rose Bowl is to the Big Ten and the Pac-12, it needs to be some pretty clear language about you take the highest-ranked team. The Sugar Bowl, I'm pretty sure, has concrete language that they would have to take Alabama as an example because they're ranked ahead of Tennessee. They're the highest-ranked SEC team not in the playoff.
But they would have to take LSU had LSU not lost, is what you're saying.
Correct. They have to take the highest-ranked non-playoff SEC team.
Is this also...
A year ago, that was Ole Miss.
Okay, you're right.
Because the top 2 teams were in the playoff.
Is this... Right now, is it going to be Ohio State-Utah again in the Rose Bowl? Is it a rematch?
Yes. Where was Utah in the ranking? I'd have to go back and look and see where they were. Yeah, so they would be them because you had UCLA and Oregon around 14 and 15.
Yeah, and Utah is 13th.
Now, the question would be, if Utah loses to USC, do they drop and does an Oregon or someone? Oregon now with 3 losses. And here's the ranking. So it would be Utah at 11.
11, okay.
Washington would probably be the team.
Okay.
So if they dropped, it would be not a rematch, but it would be Ohio State, Washington.
So we're looking at Penn State, Washington? Is that what the Rose Bowl would do?
If they swapped out Ohio State, it would definitely be Penn State. That would put Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. I feel like we've seen Ohio State Clemson a ton
Of course.
already because the
just
playoff.
like Alabama, Clemson.
So that doesn't interest me as much, but that would be the Orange Bowl. Look, the best matchup for the Orange Bowl is Tennessee and Clemson. It's a matchup we never see.
I agree.
And it's two programs right now that may not like each other that much. That's the best.
And you have the
that's
Dabo
the best for the city
stab.
of Miami, too.
You know, you have the Dabo stab from last week whenever he made the comments about how Tennessee's flipping burgers instead of playing the SEC championship because they lost to South Carolina. Well, then South Carolina beats Clemson, and here's Dabo Swinney having to answer that question again.
And I just made the point. I mean, you know, with the team we're getting ready to play, I mean, this team is okay, they just got to do this and do that. Then next week, they just can sit at home and flip burgers and watch all the championship games they're in, right? But you got to finish. It's not anything against Tennessee, man. I got all the respect in the world for Tennessee. People just hear what they want to hear.
I mean, we heard you say it, Dabo.
We heard it loud and clear.
Quite frankly.
Yeah.
And, we heard it because we perked up and said, oh, can we make this happen? Can we will this through the football gods? We're at the Orange Bowl. We could have the teams of Orange face off with Dabo saying flipping burgers after Tennessee ends up facing Clemson with really nothing to lose. I mean, you made it to the Orange Bowl. You're facing Clemson, preseason college football playoff top 4 ranked team. And
I thought it was, by the way, it was an admirable effort in the backtracking. By Dabo. I think that was almost a Jimbo.
This is why we need this
Didn't want to insult him that way by calling him Jimbo Fisher. But I thought it was a good job of taking it back, and he had the right, demeanor in what he was saying about it. But just you can never really win if you're a coach not trying to step in it by outwardly and publicly talking about and claiming a team just fell asleep and didn't show up for a game.
Right.
What's the one thing coaches hate more than anything is the thought that their team quit or the thought that they weren't prepared for a game. And if it's another head coach at another big-time program saying it, it's never going to be looked kindly upon. And that's what he was saying. It was a cautionary tale, right? I'm trying to tell my guys, here's Tennessee talking about we're not even going to the SEC championship. We can sit at home and flip burgers, and they forgot they had to go out there and beat South Carolina, and they lost. I'm telling my team not to do the same, but that's what Clemson did. But again, if I'm Josh Heupel in Tennessee, I don't take kindly to that when he says that.
And that's why I want to watch this game.
Yes.
Let's bring it on. We'll get Clay's take on this coming up.
That's what we want. We'll ask Clay about this. We'll ask Clay about a number of stories across college football. He was in Columbus this past weekend for that beatdown of Michigan over Ohio State. We'll talk about that and much more. Clay Travis, president of OutKick. He's up next. This is OutKick 360.
Welcome into the Trey Wallace podcast. Man, setting up for a crazy end to the college football season. We've got college basketball season already in full tilt. Before you know it, college baseball season will be here. But the first episode of the Trey Wallace podcast, happy to have my buddy Braden Gall from 440 Sports. Does a myriad of things. ESPN Radio, Sirius, you name it. Braden's all over it. Braden Gall, what's up, buddy?
Yes, we are bitter rivals in the SEC deep state cabal. That is,
we are
Fox versus ESPN. No, I'm honored to be here. Honored to be with you, man. On your first episode, I could not be more honored to be a part of it, for sure.
No, man, and I really appreciate it. Long relationship with Braden, and this guy knows his stuff. And look, I can't believe the regular season is pretty much over. It's all the stuff that we've gone through this year in college football. And so we sit here now and we wonder, okay, what is the playoffs look like? What are these, New Year's 6 bowl games going to look like? So let's kind of start from there, Braden. Like after the chaos of this past weekend, and the rankings are going to come out and they'll be set where they're at. But your takeaways from how we look at the national championship picture as we sit here right now on this Wednesday.
I think there's two things. One sort of a reminder to college football fans, and one is sort of forward-looking, which I think is the point of your question. It feels like maybe there are multiple tiers at the top, but that Georgia is just significantly better than everybody else. I said back in August, I actually thought Georgia was wildly underrated at number 3. I spent the entire summer telling people this. I don't know why people didn't listen. But if you're going to draw another line, it seems like Ohio State for now, depending on what takes place, of course, against Michigan. I think Michigan, if Blake Corum is healthy, can go in there and actually win that game. But what we saw this past weekend, which ties into, sort of a PSA for college football fans, like look at the top 5 and look at who they played. Number 1 played at 6-4 Kentucky. Number 2 plays at 6-4 Maryland at the time. Michigan plays host to 7-3 Illinois. All of them unranked, by the way. TCU at 6-4 Baylor. Tennessee at 6-4 South Carolina. And I think it's an example. All 5 of them struggling. And obviously Tennessee's defense the worst of all of them. But I think it's a lesson that we forget sometimes, because like in the internet age of like just screaming at each other and hot takes and grievance, like, oh, Kentucky, they suck. Oh, Illinois, they suck. Oh, Baylor, they suck. Like, there's no middle ground. You're either elite or you suck on Twitter,
Right.
and that's not real. Real life is it's really hard to go undefeated in any conference. All of those teams are bowl teams. All those teams have winning records. I think Baylor and Kentucky are probably the 2 best. So I think you can still there's a little difference there, but by and large, they're all kind of the same team. And all the top 5 struggled. And so chaos is always just, chaos is 1 quarter away, 1 play away, 1 bad snap by a long snapper away from sort of taking over the sport. We didn't have that as much this weekend. Tennessee's the only real loser in all of that. So I think it's just a reminder, like, man, college football is really hard. Going undefeated is really hard. Conference play with rivals like Baylor and TCU have known each other for 100 years.
Right, exactly.
Like they hate each other. So it's just one of those moments where I think the whole internet's like, oh, these teams all suck. Look at this, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, no, actually, Baylor's pretty good. Kentucky's pretty good.
We're back on OutKick 360 across the OutKick network, live from our downtown Nashville studios at 6th and Peabody with Old Smoky Moonshine and Yeehaw Beer. I'm Chad Withrow. He's Jonathan Hutton. We've had a big show already, Hutton. It's been a lot of fun. It's always fun here at 6th and Peabody.
And we're starting a weekly segment right now with Clay. That's going to be a blast.
Yes, Clay Travis every Wednesday, 5:20 Eastern, is going to be joining us right here on OutKick 360. He's the founder of OutKick. He's the president of OutKick. He's a man who wears many hats and many OutKick T-shirts as well. And Clay is on with us right now. Clay, I got to start here. I loved you posting the text exchange with your wife, Laura, who I know well, about your Ohio State pick over the weekend, and her response asking you if you remembered who you were married to at that point, and then Michigan winning the way they did. I take it that it was a happier Travis home after the Michigan win?
Well, I was in Columbus, so we finished off the Big Noon show, which was a lot of fun. And I think sometimes you got to pinch yourself, when you're sitting with Urban Meyer and Matt Leinart and Brady Quinn and Reggie Bush watching the game. If you're a college football fan, those are guys that certainly you have enjoyed watching and watched a lot over the years. And when you're on the sideline, for I don't know how many millions of people ended up watching the Big Noon kickoff show right beforehand, but when you're worried about the band knocking you off for your live hit on television, But yes, so all those things I would prefer to focus on as opposed to getting the prediction wrong about who would win. I thought Ohio State, given Blake Corum's injury, given the fact that Michigan's offense was not very good against Illinois the week before, C.J. Stroud, Marvin Harrison Jr., I just thought that Ohio State would outscore Michigan, and ended up being the opposite. If you had told me one team was going to win 45-23, which I think was the final, I would have put even more money on it being Ohio State as the home team that was going to win. But I was wrong. And Ohio State got whipped, particularly in the second half. I think I'm correct that Ohio State was up 20-17 at the first half.
Yep.
Scored a touchdown on that first drive, and I felt like I was going to be pretty smart about the pick. And from there, things unraveled.
Clay, did you have to pinch yourself with the tortilla slap fight challenge you and Leinert had?
That was all Leinert. You know, I'm not that plugged in with what's popular on TikTok, although
I thought it was hilarious. It was awesome.
Yeah, my kids. Evidently, the tortilla challenge is very popular on TikTok. So that was all Leinert's idea. We did it at the Ohio State, main rec center there right by the football stadium. And I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people ended up watching that thing. So they must have enjoyed it at least a little bit. For those who don't know the tortilla challenge, and I didn't know it beforehand, you have to fill your mouth up with water, like kind of puffy cheek style. And then you take a tortilla and just slap it across the face of the other person. And whoever spits out the water first loses, either from getting slapped in the face with the tortilla or the reaction to how ridiculous getting slapped in the face with a tortilla is. And I don't know. I mean, I hit him pretty good.
I know.
The tortilla went flying.
The sound is amazing.
Yeah, he hit me pretty solid. And
does Leinert still have it with the left? Does he still have the same arm strength?
Still got a lot of power. I mean, that's a first round arm.
Yeah.
Certainly my swing is right arm is nowhere near a first round arm. So not even sure it's a JV high school arm right now. So yeah, it was that was fun. And I mean, that group in general of people, from the people who are on air at Fox to the people who are behind the scenes that nobody really sees on the television front, is a really, really good group of people. And certainly small part of what has been a massive last several days for Fox when you talk about having the Cowboys and the Giants, which is, I believe, the most watched NFL game in the regular season ever. 42 million viewers for that on Thanksgiving. Then you toss in, I think it was like the 19 million for the U.S.-England game on Friday, and then follow it up on Saturday with that Ohio State-Michigan game. It's as big of an audience as we've ever seen anybody put together for three different sports, three different things back-to-back days.
We actually had a watch party here yesterday at 6 and Peabody, Clay, for that U.S. soccer match. How important was that in terms of global respect? I don't know about recognition's the right word, but just to take that step of a win and end moment, and they won the game and advanced. How big was it?
I think it'll take a lot of pressure off of the U.S. men, because I think if they were being honest with you, everything after advancing is gravy at this point. And certainly to have to finish against Iran for all the geopolitical level issues that were at play and at stake in that performance. I think they'll play really well against the Netherlands. They still have only given up one goal through 3 games, and that was on a poor giveaway, Walker Zimmerman, if I'm not mistaken, foul against Wales in the second half. Otherwise, they would have won that game and been in a lot better shape against Iran. But I think to answer the bell like they did, like Christian Pulisic did, to get the win, to avoid getting the tie or the defeat, I think it's huge. And also, I think it's big looking forward to 2026, when it would be a huge upset if the U.S. didn't advance to the knockout stage, when that is taking place in North America. And a lot of our young talent, I think we're the 3rd youngest team of the 32 that advanced to the World Cup. A lot of our young talent is kind of coming into its own at that point. This is sort of the appetizer, and you'd like to advance as far as you can. I believe in 2002, the U.S. went to the quarterfinals, the round of 8. They won 1 knockout stage game. If you could do that this round, if you could pull off an upset over the Netherlands, that would be incredible. But just being into the knockout stage round is obviously a big deal.
Blood bank guarantee. If you're picking TCU or USC to lose, who's losing and why?
They're both 2.5-point favorites, so it's not as if they are massive favorites in this game. I picked them both to win and cover. If I had to pick one, I mean, I think I would pick USC because they've already lost to Utah once, and their defense is not very good. So I know that these are both rematches, and both of the first games were very competitive. But I think it would be a USC lost, I believe, 43-42, if I'm not mistaken, in the first game against Utah.
Yep.
They haven't really stopped anybody all year on defense. USC hasn't. So in that game on Friday out in Vegas, which I believe will also be on Fox, that would be the one that I would think is more likely to lose. Also, I think if TCU loses a close game, they're in the playoff no matter what, because their 12-1 record is better than I think anybody on the outside looking in.
Clay, you and I have often talked about we love sports in large part because it's a meritocracy, and it's about what happens on the field. It doesn't matter where you're from. It's about games, results, play, all of that, talent, everything. I've got a problem with committees when it comes to college football playoff committee or NCAA tournament selection committee, whatever it may be, that tries to put their own thoughts on, well, here's who I think is better, or here's who I think would win this game based on the circumstances or whatever. I think it should be about what you've done. I think it should be about resumes, going head-to-head. I think head-to-head matchup should matter. I think it should be all about that and not necessarily about someone being injured or about what you think would happen. Example, I think Alabama's better than Tennessee right now with Joe Milton at quarterback. I think they would win on a neutral site. I also think Tennessee should be ranked ahead of them based on every other metric. I know you've talked about this and tweeted about it as well. What did you think when you saw that from the playoff committee?
Well, I think you're balancing all the time most deserving and best. And sometimes they overlap. Georgia is the most deserving SEC team to make the playoff, and I think they're also the best. That's an easy call. Michigan is the most deserving Big Ten team, and based on what we saw in the regular season, also the best. TCU, right now, most deserving and best. Same thing with USC. Sometimes those don't overlap, and you have to analyze most deserving, which would be what happened on the field itself, versus best. And I think you should lean towards most deserving when you have to make a choice between most deserving or best. Those are the tough calls. Because if you just care about best, then what you're really saying is, hey, Vegas, just tell us who the most talented teams are, and what actually happens on the field doesn't matter. To me, the entire purpose of assessing teams' quality and performance has to be based on what they did on the field. So Tennessee should be ranked above Alabama beyond a shadow of a doubt, not only because they beat Alabama head-to-head, but because they beat the team also that beat Alabama by 27 in LSU. And really, I mean, this is just about brand, right? And this is where I think the committee is failing, because if Arkansas had the exact same resume and record right now as Alabama, there's a 0% chance that Arkansas would be rated above Tennessee. And it's also funny, there isn't an Alabama fan alive that if you just flipped these total resumes, that is, Alabama had lost 2 games by double digits, but had beaten LSU and Tennessee head-to-head, and had lost to number 1 Georgia and had lost on the road at South Carolina. There isn't an Alabama fan alive who would be saying, well, Tennessee lost a close game to LSU and they lost a close game to Alabama. They definitely should be ranked above Alabama. I think this is a flaw of the college football playoff selection committee. I don't think it's really going to matter that much in the grand scheme of things. But I do think it's a bad precedent that they're setting by having Alabama above Tennessee.
Clay, let's hypothetically say Tennessee doesn't lose to South Carolina. The debate today would be, where is SC compared to where is Tennessee? And what happens on Saturday if SC beats Utah and wins the Pac-12 championship? Would they jump Tennessee? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think
What do you
Tennessee,
think the committee would
Tennessee
do?
Wouldn't be, Tennessee wouldn't be in the playoff if SC finishes 12-1, and if TCU finishes 12-0.
Right.
I don't think they'd be in the playoff. Now, if either of those teams lost and Tennessee was sitting there at 11-1, and the only loss all season was against obviously Georgia, that would be tough. I actually think if Hendon Hooker had torn his ACL, that would also be probably Tennessee would get left out over that too, which would really have been awful. You know, if Tennessee had been up 20 points in the South Carolina game when he tears his ACL, I think they probably would factor that in, and Tennessee may well not have gotten in no matter what. They might have let Ohio State in instead of Tennessee because C.J. Stroud was healthy. That would have been a brutal end to the season, but I could see that happening as well.
Clay, I haven't been totally shocked yet about any college coaching hire that I've seen. It's been at least a name that's been discussed with most of these jobs. Until I looked down on my phone today and on Twitter, I saw that Trent Dilfer is going to be the head coach at UAB, leaving Lipscomb Academy here in Nashville as a high school coach to go do that. And this kind of goes in with the trend. We saw it with Herm Edwards. We've seen it with Jeff Saturday this year. We saw it with Deion Sanders. What do you think about this move for UAB, and does it say anything about a possible trend to come with these football celebrity coaching hires?
Well, I think it started in college basketball, right? You got a lot of like Anthony Hardaway or Jerry Stackhouse, like former guys
Juwan Howard
in college basketball, Juwan Howard, who got head jobs, and then they haven't been a disaster, right? Because that's ultimately what every AD is thinking. I lose my job if I go out and hire somebody and they're a disaster. So every AD is hiring not only to try to win at the school they're at now, but also for self-preservation because they're held responsible for the hires that they make. And I think what people are starting to do is the number one way to get hired if you hadn't been a head coach before was what? Be an offensive or defensive coordinator for a super successful head coach. I think there's been enough of those hires that have failed that people are looking around and saying, okay, let's kick the bushes a little bit harder. Let's consider maybe taking risks in football in a way that we haven't passed historically. And I think that's where these hires are coming in. I think Trent Dilfer, given his record and history with the Elite 11 quarterbacks, and given what he's done, I think we know pretty well. I think you guys are calling this game tomorrow. Given what he's done at Lipscomb, which was not a very good program, that he's built into, if not the best, certainly one of the 2 or 3 best programs in the entire state. I think Trent Dilfer is going to do pretty well at UAB. Ultimately, look, we live in a world where if you're good with quarterbacks, you can win at any level of football. And Dilfer's proven that he's really good with high school quarterbacks, training them, teaching them at an elite level as they get ready for college. He was the guy. I remember I went and watched. He worked out Tua. He was Tua's trainer to get ready. He's done this with a lot of different NFL quarterbacks now, leaving college, going to the pro. He obviously was a quarterback who won a Super Bowl in the NFL, even if admittedly he was on the best defense maybe in the history of the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens at the time. And now he's built from scratch, I think it's fair to say, one of the most dominant high school football programs in a state that is pretty obsessed with high school football. I'm not surprised that somebody came after him. I thought it would happen. I almost tweeted about it the other day. I was like, I'm kind of surprised nobody's trying to interview him. I don't know about the direct UAB connection, but I think that he'll be really good with quarterbacks and get a good quarterback to UAB. And if you get a decent quarterback to UAB, they can win 7 or 8 games.
Clay, on the way out, how many deleted tweets will A.J. Brown send out after they beat the Titans Sunday?
I think the Titans have had a good enough record now. They're 7-4. I was at that game against the Bengals. I think it's fair to say that if A.J. Brown was on the Titans and he had stayed healthy, that they would be 9-2. I don't think that's a crazy prediction. I think he would have been.
I'm with you.
Given how close.
Yeah.
Given how close. There were two catches. I know he made one big catch. Traylon Burks did on Sunday, but there were 2 that he could or should have made that I would expect A.J. Brown to have made. And I think the Titans probably would have 2 more wins if they still had A.J. Brown on this team. So I expect for him to go for 200 yards receiving and probably 3 touchdowns on Sunday. I would wager a pretty penny on him having an explosive game and getting a measure of revenge en route to a big performance.
Clay will not be deleting any tweets though in that time.
No.
AJ Brown will. Clay, we appreciate it, man. This is a lot of fun. Looking forward to doing this every week also.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Keep up the good work, and hopefully we keep having good stories to talk about. See y'all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Clay Travis, president of OutKick, founder of OutKick, has been our guest. Troubling story coming out of Gainesville, Florida, with a Florida Gators quarterback. And I want to continue talking about Trent Dilfer to UAB, Hutton, and what that might say about some other possible hires or maybe a trend to come in that direction. We'll talk about that, and we'll preview tomorrow's show when we come back. This is OutKick 360.
2 teams went out. One was actually a team from the unit that I now play on TV that was attached to us. They went out. They went on the front side, or went around to go to the front side of this other house, and my team was basically going towards the back side of the house. So very shortly, what happened was it was the wrong house, and when we hit that one house, the actual house it was, which was next door, which is not exactly next door because Sutter City is kind of weird of how it's built. But, you know, they heard us. They were getting ready, prepping, you know, their gear, you know, and so they were ready to go. So when that team came around, a bunch of dudes opened up out of the front, what I assume would be the living room, with AKs and shot. I think they shot 3. If I'm not mistaken, they shot 3 of the members of that team. 2 of them were pretty much out of the fight at that point. But they were, I mean, it was heavy. I wasn't on that side of the house, but just hearing it, I was like, oh man, that's extreme. So I ran into the back door, which came into the kitchen, cleared through there, went in the hallway, and those same guys, as we approached that room, shot through the walls of that hallway, shot the guy literally right next to me. So then we backed off, and then we were and I'd have to draw it out, but we were in a tactical position that was just there wasn't a lot we could do. So we were trying to kind of figure out how to solve it. And the next thing I know, I remember just the whole room, or actually it wasn't really a room, it was the hallway, you know, so it was more like a tube straight at me, and just everything exploded. And I actually remember hitting the ground and looking up down the hallway. And I was just confused. I didn't know what had happened. And I can say, you know, getting shot at, okay. It's one thing, but the explosion made me feel small. It was like a superhero just grabbed me and was like, or it was like the Hulk grabbed me and was like, it felt like a supernatural power. And it blew, so it was a nighttime hit. It blew my nods and my nod mount off my face. So I went from, you know, under nods to not being able to see anything. It obviously, my arm, I thought it blew off. I'm trying to think of what else it wrecked, but wrecked several things. But and everything was pitch black for me, and I really didn't know what was going on. I just felt my arm was blown off, so I got up and walked outside to the back, and there was a wall that we had hopped to get in. That wasn't happening, so I just put my back against the wall and tried to take care of myself. But I never lost consciousness. The only time actually I did lose consciousness is when, and I still to this day don't know how they got me over that wall. I have no idea. But other than that, probably 5 minutes that they got me over the wall, I never lost consciousness.
Fun time yesterday watching Team USA beat Iran in the World
No
Cup here
doubt.
at 6th and Peabody. Good crowd on hand for a little watch party, rooting on America as they get it done. You know who else is fired up about that win? Charles Barkley. He was on Inside the NBA last night, and Charles Barkley, world-renowned soccer fan, had this to say.
We're going to the Netherlands. We opening up a can of whoop ass. I guarantee the Netherlands in trouble. Hey, Tyler, my man 12. We going on. Hey, I want Spain. I want Spain. I want Brazil. I want Germany. I want France. Oh, they got that boy Mbappe over there in France. He ain't no joke. But we're gonna beat the Netherlands.
Such a great Charles Barkley, one of the all-time great characters. But I love how fired up he is.
He should have dropped it. They got two moons over there. Jack.
Yeah, he's talking about Tyler Adams, the U.S. captain, when he said his guy Tyler. But that's the mentality of a guy like Charles Barkley. Bring them all on now. We just beat Iran, who's not highly ranked, but we want Netherlands, we want Spain, we want Brazil, we want everyone. Charles Barkley also with the all-time famous quote, before the Dream Team played in '92, their first game in the Olympics was against Angola. And he was asked at a press conference about Angola, and he said, I don't know nothing about Angola, but Angola's in trouble, was his assessment of what was about to happen.
Fair.
And in fact, we could probably look up the final score. Angola was indeed in trouble in that matchup. Speaking of trouble, no really good segue for this story out of Gainesville. Jalen Kitna, who was a backup quarterback at Florida, has been arrested on felony counts, multiple felony counts of child pornography. This was as of today at 3:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Team spokesperson said, "We are shocked and saddened to hear the news involving Jalen Kitna. These are extremely serious charges, and the University of Florida and UAA have zero tolerance for such behavior. Jalen has been suspended indefinitely." This is obviously the son of John Kitna, longtime NFL quarterback, longtime backup quarterback in the NFL. So troubling news. Tough first year for Billy Napier overall. This is not the type of story you want to see. This has become kind of transfer portal day. I've noticed a lot of announcements about players entering the portal. You're going to see that throughout the next week, I think. This is not a story you want if you're Billy Napier, that's for sure.
No, and it's just, another issue that he has to overcome behind the scenes and now publicly, front-facing as the program, right?
Yeah.
Napier, I'm saying. And he's doing that coming off of a finish that was extremely lackluster and a finish that should have included 8 wins. And it included losses to Vanderbilt and Florida State.
And crazy time, but quarterback position-wise, because they just cut loose a player who said the N-word while rapping to a song or doing something on a video.
Yep.
They took away his scholarship. Now, they also got a flip from, I want to say it's Jaden Rashada is the player's name.
Yes.
That's in Northern California, who was committed to Miami for a while, is now going to be a Florida Gator. So tough story there with Florida and awful news with Jalen Kitna, the quarterback. Good news for UAB, we think. Trent Dilfer hired as their head coach, Hutton. Saw the report earlier today. We're going to call his game, his final high school game tomorrow on statewide television here in the state of Tennessee. But I also see it and I think that actually makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's
given his connection to high school quarterbacks and Elite 11, I think is as much of any factor with him that's going to pay off.
Keep this in mind. This is not the scrap heap of Conference USA. Program-wise, I'm saying. That would be Florida International this year. UAB is 6-6. What was the spread against LSU?
14 and a half. Yeah, 14 and a half, 15.
And, the reason why they had an interim head coach is due to health reasons back in June. So
Bill Clark won the conference twice while he was there.
Yeah, and then had to step away for health reasons. The interim head coach has them bowl eligible. They're headed to the Bahamas Bowl. They're taking on Miami of Ohio. And Trent Dilfer in year 4 has a chance here in Nashville to go win a state title tomorrow across the state of Tennessee with, I think, the best 1 through 100, however many players on the average team, 1 through 80 roster in the state. I mean, they are that good in year 4 with a chance to win their second consecutive title. And now he's about to take over a program that has an identity.
It's got a nice stadium, too. We were there for USFL.
Great stadium.
Really good venue. I don't know what their practice and, actual everyday facilities look like at UAB, but that stadium is really nice.
Yeah, I mean, their daily – but that's their daily facility that
so
they
they're
get to use.
practicing there daily.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a program he can go win and win quickly. It's not like he's got to establish the brand that he did for high school. I mean, he's going to, right? But it's like there is a relentless effort and emotion that he pours into wherever he is. And this is it makes a ton of sense. You're right. It's kind of a layup. He would never say that.
Yeah.
But for UAB, I mean, you're getting someone who is
great hire.
all in, and you've already got a program that's winning at a level that's getting you to postseason play with an interim head coach. So, yeah. I mean, this is the time to do it.
I am curious to see if he lands some of his Lipscomb Academy players that he's currently coaching at UAB. I'm sure at least a couple will probably follow him.
Sure.
That he's going to offer scholarships to. So that's another part of the story to watch. But this sort of trend we're seeing, Deion Sanders, he's got the opportunity, according to reports, at Colorado now if he wanted to move on. Still have no idea why Georgia Tech didn't go after him. But Deion Sanders, the analyst, the player turned analyst turned coach. Jeff Saturday, another example. We're seeing more and more of that right now. I'm going to be watching this to see if it pays off the way Deion to Jackson State has, and to see if we see more of these things happening. Eddie George at TSU, another example. Guys who kind of skipped the traditional path to being a head coach by being, coaching position for a while, then being a coordinator, then getting a job, and going from a celebrity status as a TV personality or player into a coaching role in football. We talked about Clay, too. I'm fascinated to see how this works out for Trent Dilfer, but I think it's a good hire.
I'm curious to see who the next guy is that you're like, oh, I had no idea he wanted to be a coach.
Yeah.
And it's mainly because they don't want to put, and I don't blame him. Like, Jeff Saturday didn't want to be an offensive line coach.
Yeah.
Right?
But someone maybe that's on TV right now that's popular that you don't know, but then they're going to take a head coaching job somewhere. We'll find out.
Or the Phillip Rivers. That version of he could play another year, chose to just go coach high school football in Alabama.
We can ask about that tomorrow. Trey Wallace and Armando Salguero.
Yes.
They're joining our show tomorrow. We will actually be in Chattanooga calling those games on TV. We will be on air, though. We'll be live from Chattanooga tomorrow. Trey Wallace will talk college football. Armando Salguero will talk some NFL. We're going to go a little bit of everywhere like we normally do. Fun show today.
Crushed it.
Thanks for sticking around. I think you're through the worst of the voice problem, so we're going to go now.
We're ready to rock and roll. We'll
ready.
be out of the gates, ready to roll tomorrow.
Thanks to our fantastic crew in here every day at our 6th and Peabody studios, getting it done. We'll be back tomorrow. OutKick 360.